The Triumph Beneath London, how the world's first metro system was built. London in the mid-19th century was a city of stark contrasts, a pinnacle of the Industrial Revolution and, at the same time, a victim of its own success. As the world's largest and most prosperous city, it was literally suffocating from traffic congestion. The cobblestone streets were jammed with the carriages of the aristocracy, traders' carts laden with goods, competing horse-drawn omnibuses, and throngs of pedestrians. On occasion, even cows being driven to the slaughterhouses added to the chaos. This transport gridlock was not just an inconvenience, it paralyzed the city's economy, contributed to unsanitary conditions, and made life in London unbearable. In this critical situation, a visionary project was born, one that many considered to be sheer madness. The idea belonged to Charles Pearson, the city's solicitor, a man of remarkable intellect and incredible persistence. As early as the 1840s, he began actively lobbying for the idea of building railways underground. At the time, this seemed like something out of science fiction. Railways were only just gaining popularity, and tunnels were short, designed only to pass under hills and mountains, not under an entire city densely packed with brick buildings and a complex network of sewers, water pipes, and gas lines. Despite the widespread skepticism, Pearson tirelessly continued to work on his project. He found allies, presented detailed plans, and managed to convince investors to fund the Metropolitan Railway, the world's first underground railway. The project's cost was colossal, over $100 million in today's money. It was an enormous gamble on the future, and many were certain it would fail. Construction began in 1860 and lasted for 3 long years, filled with difficulties. The main technology used was a method called cut and cover. It was a straightforward but incredibly disruptive process. Workers dug a massive trench about 10 meters deep along the proposed line. They then constructed a brick archway tunnel designed to withstand the immense weight of the city above. Finally, the trench was refilled, and the road was rebuilt over the newly constructed tunnel. Because this method was so disruptive and required the demolition of buildings, engineers tried to lay the tunnels under existing wide roads, such as New Road and Farringdon Road. However, even this couldn't protect the project from problems. On one occasion, a heavy rainstorm flooded a nearby sewer, which burst through the excavation, flooding the site and delaying the project by several months. But all the obstacles were overcome. On January 10, 1863, the Metropolitan Railway officially opened. On that day, 30,000 people, intrigued and desperate for an alternative to the traffic, ventured underground to travel on the 4-mile stretch from Paddington to Farringdon Street. The trains at the time were powered by steam engines, which created their own set of challenges. The tunnels were filled with smoke and soot, but passengers were willing to endure it for the sake of speed and convenience. The success was immediate and staggering. Londoners embraced the subway, and it quickly became an integral part of their lives. The impact of the Metropolitan went far beyond a simple transport solution. Economic boom. New suburbs began to grow around the stations, where residents sought to move for more comfortable living conditions. Commercial development. Large department stores, recognizing the potential passenger traffic, opened branches right next to the railway. Tourism and entertainment. The railway company even created its own attractions to draw in more passengers. One such example was a massive Ferris wheel in Earl's Court, built specifically to bring tourists in by train. Within 30 years, London's subway system had grown to cover 80 kilometers of track. In the city center, the lines ran in tunnels, while in the suburbs, trains operated on the surface or on embankments, connecting the entire city. By the late 1880s, London faced another problem. The city's development had become so dense, buildings, sewer lines, electric cables, and existing subway lines were all interwoven, that the cut-and-cover method was no longer feasible. A new technology was needed to dig even deeper. The solution came in the form of a machine called the Great Head Shield. This astonishing technology for its time allowed a team of just 12 workers, protected inside a cylindrical shield, to bore through the earth, carving deep tunnels through the London clay. These new lines were nicknamed tubes and ran about 25 meters deeper than their cut-and-cover predecessors. Most importantly, their construction did not disturb the surface, making it possible to dig under buildings and even under the River Thames. The first tube line, the City and South London Railway, opened in 1890. It proved so successful that half a dozen more similar lines were built over the next 20 years. This was a true breakthrough that allowed the subway system to expand even further. The story of the London Underground became a source of inspiration for the entire world. By the early 20th century, Budapest, Berlin, Paris, and New York had all built their own underground systems, followed by many other cities. Today, with more than 160 cities in 55 countries using underground railways to combat traffic congestion, we can confidently say that it all started with the foresight of Charles Pearson and the innovation of the Metropolitan Railway. They got the world on the right track.